Hello, everyone. Thank you for letting me spend some time with you today. I do appreciate it. Don't forget, all the buttons that you click and push and do all the things with, okay? And also, so I don't get messages reminding me of doing this, the books are available at authorjerrymitchell.com, or you can go to givegod90.com and follow the link from there. All right. Now that all the advertisements are out of the way, are you like me? You don't like advertisements? And it's not, I'm trying to sell you something, okay? I'm trying to encourage you to buy the books. I really am. I'm not going to deny that. But at least, I don't spend, an infomercial telling you to do it, right? Well, that's not quite true. I have done interviews where I've done that. Okay, got me. And I hate those. I hated doing them. I really did. On with the subject. In the last episode, I looked at how people, they just look foolish when they try to, they use the Bible the wrong way to promote their own agenda, not the plan of our Creator. It just makes them look foolish. It really does. So today we're going to look at how some people who quoted scriptures in the Bible did it the right way. Okay? I know some of you, when I don't use the prophets in this, are going to be saying, well, wait a minute, where's all the prophets in this? It's not a fair comparison. It's not a fair comparison. The prophets, they heard directly from God, our Creator, and then they went and delivered the message that they were given to deliver. They weren't quoting what had been written. They were it was being written as they were doing it. Okay? That's the difference. And it's not a fair comparison when you talk about people who were quoting what was already written with people who were hearing directly from God and then speaking from Him without quoting something that had already been written down by Moses or somebody else. Big difference. All right. I hope that made sense. It made sense in my head. If it made sense when it came out of my mouth, I don't know. But we're going to leave it the way it is. We're going to first look at Peter. During his discourse in Acts chapter 2, he quotes Joel. And he does this to explain what the people had witnessed. And then he does something that you don't often see. He goes on to give them the reason that they experienced this rather strange phenomenon, right? Although it wasn't that strange. Excuse me. It is one of the rare times that someone who quoted what was written just continued speaking after they quoted what was written. Typically, you're not going to see that. For instance, Matthew chapter 4. It's commonly referred to as the temptation of Jesus. I get it. It's a really good example. This devil he's talking to, makes him an offer. And then he says, it is written. And then he shuts up. He stops speaking. He just lets the word of the Father, he allows it to stand on its own because he knows it will not fail. Now, the argument can be made that because this devil was familiar with what was written, there was no need to keep talking about it, right? There just wasn't any need. But he does something in Luke chapter 4 that we should probably explain a little bit. And we see what happens when he goes to the synagogue. he goes in and he reads from the scroll of Isaiah. And I'm going to begin in verse 16 of Luke chapter 4. Wow, that sounded like a preacher, didn't it? I'm going to begin in verse 16 of Luke chapter 4. Didn't mean to sound like that. Anyway, then Jesus came to Nazareth where he had been brought up. He came to Nazareth where he had been brought up, and as was his custom, he entered the synagogue on the Sabbath, and when he stood up to read, the scroll of the prophet Isaiah was handed to him. Okay, he didn't pick it right off the get-go. Unrolling it, he found the place where it was written. See? Where it was already written. He's quoting from Isaiah, verse 18. The Spirit of the Lord is on me because he has anointed me to preach the good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim liberty to the captives, recovery of sight to the blind, to release the oppressed, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. Then he rolled up the scroll, returned it to the attendant, and sat down. And then, oh, if you've ever been in a meeting like this, all right, everybody's like, wait a minute, he didn't finish. He didn't finish reading what he was supposed to read. He didn't. What's going on? What's going on? You see, they were accustomed to hearing this read, but instead of stopping where he stopped, it kept going. You know, there were no chapter and verse markings on this scroll. Okay. In fact, it would be really nice if somebody would actually print a good understanding of the Bible without all that. Okay. They just weren't there. You know, there was nothing there to tell him where he should begin, where he should end. He read the passage he needed to read, and then he sits down and tries to be quiet. And the people, what are you doing? You can't stop there. Now, what he was doing was actually attempting to make them think. He's saying, think about what I just read. This may very well be the year of the Lord's favor. He didn't need to go on with that. He just stops. And by the way, because he stops there, it is a very good indication his ministry was not 3.5 years, but only 1 year, as many people are figuring out. People were getting upset. They were getting angry. They were confused. They're going, what's happening? What's happening? You know, and then they start making accusations. Who is this guy who is saying this is the year of God's favor? Who's he to say this is the year that God finds favor? What's wrong with last year? What's wrong with next year? And, you know, then as you know, if you've ever been in a meeting like that, you'd understand, right? Where somebody says something, it gets people upset, and all of a sudden the room explodes for a few minutes. There's confusion, there's chaos, there's people screaming and yelling. And then he says, look, I know you're not going to accept a prophet from your own hometown. You know me. I get it. I understand it completely now that I'm old enough to look back at my school years. And some of the people that I went to school with are like doctors and lawyers. And I think I'm not going to them. You know, they weren't that smart when they were in school. You know, and these older people probably looking at this younger Yeshua, Jesus, and saying, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He hasn't even studied with the rabbis. He doesn't understand the Pharisaical way. I get it. I understand it. And I think about how some of the people I went to school with and now look at their professions and like, they couldn't add 2 plus 2 when they were in high school. How in the world did they get to be where they're at? But, sometimes later in life, things begin to click and make sense. And you go, oh, this is why this happens. This is why that happens. And you move on. Excuse me again. These examples, though, they show us something that a lot of people overlook. When we use the Bible to deliver the message that we are in need to deliver for whatever reason, whether it's been given to us to deliver, we're sent to deliver the message, or whether we choose to deliver the message, we allow the words of our Creator to stand on their own. There's no need to add to them. Absolutely no need to add to them. And as we see in Luke, sometimes, not often, but sometimes, part of a passage doesn't need to be completed to make your point. Especially if that point is not pushing your own agenda, but promoting the plan of our Creator. We deliver the message, and then we stop talking. We let it sink in so that people hopefully take time to process it properly. Sadly, some won't. They're going to react without thinking, and that will absolutely reveal their foolishness. I know this from personal experience. I've done it. I've been in that situation, being in a church business meeting, right? And somebody says, "Oh, we need to do this way." Wait a minute. What'd you just say? We need to do it what way? Let me pick up the Bible here and read what it says. And I read exactly what the Bible says, and we don't care what the Bible says. We're going to do it our way. Okay. I have said what I needed to say. I don't need to say another word. And then they go do it their way. And shortly thereafter, things begin to fall apart. I've seen it happen. I've experienced it. I know what happens in those situations. And the problem is, the more things fall apart, the more people are going, well, this should have worked. Why didn't it work? And they continue with this confusion, this chaos sort of interruption in their church life. And they have no idea why. They have no idea why. But that's okay. For me, I look at it and say, that's between you and your Creator. You figure it out. If you can't remember the verse I read, or you won't go back into the minutes of the meeting and understand what I read, hopefully it's recorded, and figure out what went wrong and why, that's between you and your Creator. You see, our job is not to force the Bible down the throats of others. It's not. Some people are going to accept it. Some people are not. It's that simple. Our job is to deliver the message and then be silent. We give the Creator the time to deal with those who reject His word His way. His way. That's hard for me to do because, I want immediate, self-gratification, right? God, you got to prove to Him I was right. No, I don't. Our Creator's saying, I will prove to them I was right. Not you, Jerry. Not you didn't have to be right. Me, the Almighty, was right. And, being reminded of that is quite humbling as well. Okay? So, hopefully, the next time that you need to quote from the Bible, whether, it is you're sent by the Almighty, or you're given the words to speak maybe in a different way, in a different format, paraphrasing type thing. Hopefully, you're going to remember these examples, and you're going to listen to the Creator and speak exactly what you're given to speak. And then you're going to sit down and smile and be quiet. And if you do that, you will be living the way you are designed to live. And that is what I hope you think about until next time. And until next time, I do wish you many, many blessings, everyone.